There comes a moment when you quietly stop participating in the roles others have come to rely on you to play. The need to justify yourself constantly, the habit of always being present, the way you dull your shine just to make others feel more at ease. Then, unexpectedly, you just stop, and everything around you shifts. It's not that you've grown distant. You've simply gained clarity. You're not being impolite. You've just stepped away from appeasing everyone without any kind of exit bonus. And what follows is uncertainty. People who were once accustomed to having unlimited access to your time, your energy, and your emotional bandwidth suddenly feel unsteady. They've been conditioned to reach you on demand, mentally, emotionally, physically, whenever they needed. And here's the irony. You didn't cut anyone off, didn't start arguments, didn't make any loud declarations. You just removed your presence. And somehow, that absence echoes louder than any explanation ever could. You're not automatically saying yes anymore. You've stopped resuscitating emotionally absent people who left the moment you needed air. Becoming less reachable isn't manipulation. It's self-respect. It's choosing to live without leaning on fleeting comfort from temporary connections. You're not closed off. You've simply stopped settling for scraps at places you've outgrown. And this is when your story takes a powerful turn. There's an unusual strength in non-reaction. And no, it's not about staying quiet to seem aloof or withholding as some dating tactic. It's beyond all that. It's about walking away from an older version of yourself. The one that craved approval, wanted to be understood, needed to be justified. Because when you decide to be out of reach, it's not just about people not being able to contact you. It's about them no longer being able to control your emotional responses. Before, when someone ignored you, you'd spiral, overanalyze, type out long messages, reread old text trying to understand your mistake. But now, their silence feels like clarity, a reminder that your peace doesn't lie in proving you're worthy. It lies in remembering you always were. When you stop defending yourself, something unexpected happens. People start showing you who they really are, without you nudging the conversation or steering their behavior. Some fade away. Good. That was their exit. Others cling tighter, not out of affection, but because losing access bothers them. Access is addictive. When you stop giving it so freely, people start treating it like it's rare, because it is. You are, and for the first time, maybe you feel it, not in a loud, attention-seeking way, but in a quiet, steady self-assurance that no longer depends on outside applause to keep moving. Your stride changes. Even your breathing shifts. You take time to rest without shame. You respond when you feel like it, not from obligation. You no longer fix emotional messes that aren't yours. You're no longer the one soaking up everyone else's drama. You're not bitter. You're just inaccessible to anything that threatens your inner peace. That's not unkind, that's growth. And people notice. Those who used to take you lightly now watch with curiosity, confused by your calm. But truthfully, they never deserve to know the real you. There's a point when you stop needing explanations and start enjoying the quiet that comes after. Suddenly, not everything has to be explained. You no longer look for closure from someone who couldn't even be honest. You're no longer waiting on apologies from people still lost in their illusions. You no longer need to be seen. You've seen yourself. And that's the twist they didn't expect. When you become elusive, it's no longer about evading people. It's about realignment. You're not disappearing, you're just done replaying the same conversations that go nowhere. You're not trying to be elusive, you're finally recognizing who you are, and how few truly did. People will say you've changed, that you've become harder to reach, less emotionally open, not as responsive. They're not wrong. You've changed because you stopped running your life like a help desk for everyone's crisis. Except your own. There's no dramatic speech, no public goodbye. You just start prioritizing yourself in soft, simple ways. Like saying no without a justification, like resting without feeling guilty, like smiling at things that once crushed you. Your energy becomes high value, not because you're playing hard to get, but because you finally recognize the toll of offering yourself with no boundaries. You stop wondering if you're missed. You stop waiting for people to return, because the version of you that needed that reassurance no longer exists. You've arrived at a place where peace is more comforting than validation, where solitude brings more joy than shallow interactions, That's when life begins to attract the kind of people, chances, and serenity you once chased while exhausted. You're not trying to prove anymore. You're simply existing. Here's what most won't tell you about becoming unavailable. It's not only about what you stop giving. It's about what you start protecting. You guard your mornings. That sense of stillness when you wake up and don't reach for your phone out of obligation. You stop launching into other people's emergencies like a firefighter, solving crises that aren't yours. Your energy isn't on the market anymore. It runs on your own schedule, and you're finally in charge of it. You also protect your speech. You talk less, but when you do, it has purpose. You don't exhaust your voice on those who only listen to react. And when something isn't worth discussing, you leave it alone, because silence has become an active choice, not a passive one. You stop proving who you are. That old inner voice that used to panic when someone pulled away, it softens. You're no longer sprinting through mental gymnastics, trying to decide which version of yourself will be most accepted. You just show up unmasked, unapologetic, unconcerned with applause. And that presence, it resonates. Even unspoken, it's felt. In the way you speak, in the way you no longer reach for validation that isn't freely given. People notice the void where the old you used to stand. The one who bent endlessly to keep others happy. But you're not cold. You've simply stopped translating your warmth to those who only came close when they needed it. This new version of you isn't hidden behind walls. It's behind clear windows. People can still enter, just not through shame, guilt, or fear of being left. They come in through purpose, mutual respect, and sincerity. You've redrawn the blueprint. And quietly, here's what's real. Once you experience this level of calm, chaos feels unbearable. Once you find peace in your own presence, you stop begging for attention in fragments and false closeness. You're not distant because you've shut down. You're distant because you stopped offering your essence to people who only skimmed the surface. Something shifts when you stop making yourself so easy to access. It's not to punish, it's to preserve. When you build inner peace, you guard it like it's sacred. Not with anger, but with insight. You start discerning between true connection and emotional dependency. You stop calling routine love. You stop labeling guilt as support. And those conversations you used to chase, you now let them play like background noise. You no longer leap into defense mode when someone misreads you. Not because you're proud, but because you're clear. You've learned that being visible to the wrong people never made you feel truly seen. Then something deeper happens. You begin to evaluate relationships differently, not by time invested or shared experiences, but by how you feel when they leave. Lighter or heavier. You notice what your body tells you, the fatigue after interactions, the tension in your shoulders, that pit in your stomach when you say yes against your will. Becoming unreachable teaches you to stop trading self-loyalty for temporary harmony. Because every time you neglect your truth to ease someone else's comfort, you start a war inside yourself. And eventually, that cost becomes too steep. You stop sacrificing mental health for temporary peace, so you get quieter. You pause before replying, not out of bitterness, but because your minutes matter now. You stop defending your boundaries like they need to be justified. You let people misunderstand you, because their confusion is no longer your burden. You're not their mirror. You're not here to reflect what they want to see. You're here to live authentically, and that authenticity, it draws others in, not with noise, but with steadiness. Not because you're trying to be seen, but because you've stopped hiding in plain sight. There's a reason people watch you differently when you no longer need anything from them. It's not rudeness. It's your energy saying, I've already chosen myself. And that unspoken message, it echoes louder than anything verbal ever could. When you stop offering your essence like a product for approval, everything changes. You're no longer looking to be selected. You're not a deal. You're not performing. You're rooted. And those who are grounded don't run after every gust of wind. They hold still even when the world sways. And that's when life begins to transform. Because you're no longer acting from a place of emptiness. You don't keep people around by over-giving, over-sharing, or over-compromising. You're not overdoing anything. You're simply enough. And for once, you don't just say it, you believe it. You feel it, in the ease of your days, in how effortless your interactions have become. In the quiet moments when your phone stays still and you feel peace, not panic. In the mirror when you stop doubting and start appreciating. Because let's be honest, no one else can fully value you while you keep discounting yourself. And for too long, you've been marking yourself down just to stay within reach for people who never planned to invest deeply. But not anymore. Now, you're aligned with your truth, not to gain anyone's praise, but because you've realized peace is your foundation. You were just letting too many disturbances in, and the more you protect it, the more naturally magnetic you become. Not to everyone, but to those who matter. The ones who approach with clarity, not confusion, with depth, not distraction. That's the quiet gift of becoming out of reach. You don't chase what depletes you. You attract what nourishes you. And one of the most misunderstood truths about this shift: you're not isolating, you're refining. You're not withdrawing. You're just no longer stretching for those who only come close when it suits them. You're not frozen. You're just finally warm to yourself. Because here's the hidden truth: when you stop being constantly reachable, you stop being constantly emptied. Think of the times you silenced your voice to keep someone else comfortable. How many times you pushed aside your gut feeling just to hold on to something. How often you let your own peace be sacrificed for those who didn't even see your exhaustion. That ends here. Not because you've changed into someone else, but because you finally remembered who you were before you edited yourself to be accepted. Now, when something feels wrong, you trust that feeling. Now, when people disappear during your struggle but return out of boredom, you don't call it love, you call it what it is. Now, when you walk into a space, you don't search for approval. You bring calm and let it shape the atmosphere. This is what happens when you stop needing validation to justify your boundaries. You no longer re-explain your standards. You stop managing everyone else's discomfort. You let their reactions be theirs. You let their absence teach you, because your peace isn't on the table anymore. That's not harsh. That's healing, the real transformation. It's not how others behave. It's in what you now allow. And once your standards shift, everything else follows. Old patterns fade, shallow connections dissolve. What's left is space. Space for things that matter, people who are present, mornings that are peaceful, boundaries that are solid, a self that no longer lives just to survive. This isn't about avoiding love or joy or real connection. It's about saying no to chaos, emotional dependency, and the idea that you must prove your value. You always had value. You just forgot. And here's the quiet magic of becoming untouchable: you stop performing your value and start protecting it.